How much would your company transform if you had a secret positive work culture weapon? Someone who's understated and patient, moves with ease. Someone who partners with your executive leaders to define and shape the company culture to produce deeper connections. Higher engagement with overall well-being and prosperity for everyone. Can you imagine this phenomenal transformation and how amazing it would be to work where you work? My guest today is that secret weapon. And for the next 30 minutes, she'll share with us the keys to unlocking all the goodness latent in your organization. Work Positive Nation, you'll want to listen to every minute of this episode of the Work Positive Podcast.
Welcome to the Work Positive Podcast with your host, executive coach and culture architect, Dr. Joey Fawcett. Discover strategies and tactics that work positive as Dr. Joey talks with industry leaders who create a positive work culture that attracts top talent and reduces team turnover. Discover how you can create a work positive culture that increases productivity and profits. Here's your host, Dr. Joey.
Work Positive Nation, you're excited to meet. I'm excited to introduce you to my new best friend, Angela Cusack. Angela, welcome to the Work Positive Podcast.
It is wonderful, as always, to be with you, Joey.
The pleasure is mine. The pleasure is mine. You hail from Virginia in some way, shape, form, or fashion, and that's where I'm standing now in the great Commonwealth of Virginia. So we've got this Virginia thing going on. More presidents than any other state in the union, right? So
yeah, whether that's good, bad, or indifferent, it happens to be a fact.
It depends on which president you're talking about and with whom you're speaking, right?
That's right. That is right.
So Work Positive Nation, Angela has written this incredible book called Discover the Matrix: Integrity, the True Mark of Leadership. And the Amazon link is in the the show notes rather. So be sure to get yourself a copy. And we're going to be talking about some of the things that Angela has written about in there related to how to create a positive work culture. So Angela, in the intro, I referred to you as the secret weapon to creating a positive work culture. So let's just come out with the secret now. Mm-hmm. Creating a positive work culture is tough work today, isn't it?
It is, and it can be tough work. It just depends on where you are within the organization. And if you are a startup, or if you're a mature organization who's looking to evolve to having a positive work situation, place in today's environment. So it's one of those opportunities that if you are starting up as an entrepreneur of a new business, the number one place to begin with a positive work experience is before day one begins, right? Yep. And if you're in the midst of it, in the heat of it, and you're like, hey, my company isn't doing as well as I'd like, engagement isn't where we want it to be, it's not too late to have that work positive attitude and mentality and shift the discourse internally. And it starts with us as leaders.
And engagement is one of those big conversations that we as leaders in the human resources space have on a regular basis, right? Gallup found in the last poll that I saw, 85% of American workers are disengaged. Man, what a talent drain and a loss of a competitive advantage in a global marketplace. Let's talk about engagement, and let's couch it, Angela, in terms of this attraction factor, because we're all talking about attracting top talent. We may not know what to do with them once we get them, but attracting them means that we're attracting persons like are working with us now. So we want an engaged workforce in order to attract top talent. What are some of the things you see working out there in the matrix that actually attract top talent by engaging?
Yeah, the number one is in the conversation with that top talent that you're wanting to source to get them to move to yes, is vulnerability. Tell the truth. Explain the environment the way the environment is. Because the deal is, they're going to walk through that door on day one and smell it and taste it. Let's just offer it up to them on a platter and then ask, are you willing to come in and help us make a radical change for a different environment? Or
Mm,
will you help us on the journey of evolving? Because this is where we're moving toward. So by inviting that top talent to play a significant role, in contrast to pretending like that culture of working positively has already arrived at its destination,
yeah, rather than lying to
right?
them, you're saying?
Well, it's kind of fudging, right? It's like around the edge.
It's
So I'm saying
changing.
let's remove that a bit and speaking from vulnerability and speaking from the real, sincere, high integrity place of, and this is what is going on now. Are you interested in being a part of the evolution of this company?
Mm,
Anyone that I have had the privilege of working with, no matter which side of the coin it is, meaning the company or the individual talent, gets excited when they know how to ask the question or how to offer it up so that it doesn't frighten the top talent away.
yeah. Well, I think we all, in terms of the stretched up talent, we all want to see the connection between our daily task and the company mission. But people tend to, especially highly motivated persons like we're talking about with top talent, people tend to respond well to requests for help. And I want to know where's my place going to be in the organization. So if you're being vulnerable and saying, this is not a perfect place to work, we have our flaws, we have our warts, we have our idiosyncrasies. So here's our goal, here's where we're striving for, here's the mark that we're aiming for. What we'd like for you to do is come in and help us accelerate our movement towards that. Then there's a certain engagement that occurs right from the beginning conversations, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It is the old Maslow's hierarchy, right? We
Mm,
move from a space of where we've created safety, psychological and otherwise, with that potential talent and inviting them to be a part of the belonging of changing the way things are. And as a part of that, they also change as a human being when they invest in that way into something that's bigger than themselves. And my belief is that that is why we're here as human beings on this planet, is
mhm.
to come into community to change the trajectory of the way things are.
Yeah, and that's bedrock in the matrix, right? Is
It
we're
is.
here not just for ourselves, despite anybody who's a narcissist is listening to this, but does a narcissist even know they're a narcissist, right? So we're all here together to build that better community and to make the community better with each of us making our own unique contribution. That's really bedrock in the matrix, right, Angela?
It is. It is absolutely that. It is the differentiation between, as I say in The Matrix, or The Matrix says in the movie The Matrix.
Uh-huh.
Do you choose the red pill and make the world a better place by going deep into understanding who you are within the context of the organization that you're a part of? Or will you choose the blue pill and just lay in your bed and wallow in the things that you've already always known and complain about them? And
Mm-hmm.
working positively is about the matrix concept of choosing the red pill.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned an important word, at least for me, and that's vulnerability. When you're
Yeah,
vulnerable with someone, that's a huge deposit in their bank of emotional intelligence, isn't it? And yet, there's some of us who just heard that word vulnerability and go, Jace, that's too squishy, or I don't want to be vulnerable because I want to keep it professional. What would you say to people who want to keep it professional or think that vulnerability is too squishy a word?
yeah, I love that question. And it's not professional. It's just how we've chosen to label it. And
Hmm.
there is, in my experience, there are boundaries related to vulnerability. It's not like we're going to go into a professional environment and air everything that's happened the night before.
Yeah, there's certain
And,
boundaries here.
right. And vulnerability might be more like, hey, Joey, I had a tough night last night.
Hmm.
And I just really want you to be aware that my behavior in the meeting that we're getting ready to start might echo some of that for me. It may be a distraction for me.
Hmm.
I don't need to explain what made it a bad night, But I
Mm,
have the ability to be vulnerable enough not to hide it away, not to pretend like you, my leader, manager, peer, co-partner in crime,
hmm
will know that. Because the moment I don't reveal vulnerably about what is going on for me in that moment,
mm,
will create a break in the connection with the others in the room because they will start to make up
yeah.
stories about, so what's going on with Angela?
Mm,
What is that all about? And the
hmm
moment the story arises with no evidence supporting it is the moment distance and conflict and
mm,
worry, discomfort,
yeah.
all the things that we might think of that prevent a positive work environment.
Yeah, there's going to be a vacuum there, some sort of difference, some sort of void, and our imaginations are going to fill that void, usually with something negative, right? So just by declaring it, hey, not at the top of my game today, you guys give me a little grace. That in itself is a positive work environment because I'm asking for grace and people reciprocate to that request for help, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
amazing. So, the way to create greater engagement is through vulnerability, and that, in effect, attracts top talent with whom we're also vulnerable to say, here's our goal, here's our mark. We're not where we want to be, like we ever will be, but we'd like to invite you on this journey to help us move closer. What besides vulnerability creates that kind of engaged climate within a company or organization?
Yeah, the strength to say what is so. Example would be performance situation. Top talent wants feed forward information. They
Hmm.
don't want just feedback at the end of a week or the end of a month or the end of a quarter or, heaven forbid, the end of a year.
Yeah.
They want feedback live time in the moment, in action, in a forward way. And the distinction I make is feedback tends to be more of, here's what you could have done differently. Feed forward is, hey, let's take a look at how you're engaging in your customer relationships and begin to unpack what might actually be getting in your way of getting business closed.
Hmm.
So it's in the moment and discovering, like I talk about in Discover the Matrix, it's discovering what is the narrative or the belief or the value or the worry, emotional domain worry, that is preventing that individual, that talent from missing the mark at a performance or productivity level. So
Hmm.
having the strength, right? We might call that courage too, but having the candor and the strength to say what is so is the elements that are absolutely, in my opinion, necessary to create resilience inside of an organization that can perpetuate a positive work environment.
Hmm. And resilience is so important, right? And
Yeah.
vulnerability and strength or courage certainly lead to that. What's the role of resilience in creating this culture that attracts top talent by virtue of increasing its own positivity?
It's multifaceted, right? It's resilience at an individual level,
Hmm.
at a team level, teaming level, cross-functional level, and ultimately the organizational level in order to fulfill the promise of fulfilling the mission of what the organization claims that it wants to have. When organizations break down or teams break down due to conflict or whatever the reason may be, performance breakdown, resilience gives us a chance to step away from that breakdown or that issue or concern and look at it outside of ourselves, outside of the situation, and wonder about the problem. One of my clients will often say, be hard on the problem and not the person. And
Mm,
we can look at breakdowns through the lens of it's a breakdown and it's not about the people. The people obviously played a role somewhere, but it's not about the person. It's not about them being good or bad, right or wrong.
mm,
It's about the system itself.
yeah.
Individually, we bring the same construct. We're the same type of system as we are in teams and organizations. And so within ourselves, I've just got to do a quick sidebar here, but most of us, myself included,
Mm.
grew up with this thinking, this definition of resilience being strong-minded, strong-willed,
Yeah.
push through,
Tough it out.
don't ask for help, tough it out. One
Uh-huh.
of my
Yeah.
favorites, right?
Uh-huh.
And it's not that, right? It
Mm.
is this balance of confidence and courage and strength with vulnerability to say, I don't know. Let's take a look. I need help. I'm confused about where we're going to.
Mm.
Both of those things are important for the individual to hold their integrity, and so be it with the team and the organization with
Mm.
their own external customer base.
Yeah, and sometimes those systems need tinkering with, particularly when you see continued breakdowns, right, in certain areas. And so we're able to say, look at the system here. How can we improve the system to allow our people to succeed so that we ignite their success, right? Which,
Yes.
by the way, Angela Cusack is my guest on this episode of the Work Positive Podcast, and ignitingsuccess.com is her website. Discover the Matrix is her book. You'll find both of those links in the show notes, so feel free to go down there and scroll through those, unless you're walking the dog or on the Peloton or something like that. And then they're still in the show notes for you to come back and access later. Well, we're doing an amazing job through resilience and strength and vulnerability, courage, these kinds of qualities in creating a positive work culture that attracts top talent. So they join with certain expectations of helping our company create more of a positive work culture. How do we reduce the team turnover then? How do we keep them and make the back door smaller than the front door?
Mhm. The way I look at it is this. If the front door is open, swings open, and the talent says yes, and the individuals representing the organization, their manager, their leader, the human resource recruiter who brought them forward, the other people that they've spoken to, if they have spoken from a place of integrity, saying what needs to be said
Mm.
in a way that it can be experienced, and it matches the core values of the individual. So that individual came in also with a level of, yes, this feels good to me. This feels like home, and I'm willing to do the work.
Mm.
The chances of that talent leaving, unless their significant other is relocated or there's another opportunity that somehow magically is presented to them in a place that they've always imagined they would live. Bali, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
That might
Yeah.
be my imagination. Or,
Yeah.
Kansas City or
Yeah.
wherever it may be, right?
Yeah.
But the things that close the back door may not always be in the control of the organization itself,
Sure.
but
Sure.
much of it is. And my belief and my experience says that if we can do the first thing right first, the chances of that talent leaving is slim.
Mm.
Now, within that, here's the caveat. We have to, as a organization and as a leader, be able to fulfill the promises that we've made to that individual. Just like we're asking them to fulfill their promises for performance and productivity and being a part of evolving and expanding this culture, this organization. Yeah.
Mm.
If there are multiple breakdowns that occur where the leader or the organization promises career pathing or promises an experience of being in a executive development program and none of that exists and none of that shows up on the horizon,
Mm.
then we haven't been sincere. We haven't fulfilled our promise. And therefore, the organization and the team shouldn't be one bit surprised that the talent leaves for something that is going to continue to evolve them as the human being and the talent that they are.
The role of integrity is so significant in reducing team turnover. What is your definition of integrity, Angela?
Thank you for asking. Because it is different than if you were to open up the encyclopedia or the dictionary or go to Wikipedia. It is different, right?
Mhm.
But it is based out of this similar idea and notion. that who I am on the inside matches the external persona that you see and experience on the outside.
Mm.
There's no distinction between the two. And for that to be represented to another human being in that way means the individual has to do some significant work within themselves to notice where do they fall into the habits of pleasing. And you know what I mean. It's your
Mm-hmm.
boss says to you, "Hey, Angela, can you get that done?" And I go, "Oh, sure, I can get that done." But internally, I am petrified. I don't even
Yeah,
know what he
yeah.
asked me to do.
I don't have
I
a
may have,
clue.
right. I don't have the competency. I don't have, and if my
Uh,
confidence is too low, then it inhibits my ability to be sincere or to have that level of integrity that I speak to, where my internal self and my external self and my future self has congruency.
mm. So there's a match between who I know myself to be in the internal conversations that I have and then the external conversations or who it is I project to others. So let's say I'm living out of a place of pleasing or a place of fear or something like that. You referenced some internal work that I need to do. What might that internal work look like to help me become a
Mhm.
person of integrity?
Yeah, some of it would be to notice every single time that we respond, and we respond yes to please someone else, or we give in to please someone else, just as an example.
Hmm.
And if the experience that we're having internally is, "Arr, arr, I don't really want to do that, but it's my job," right? The
Yeah.
moment we hear complaint
Uh,
internally is a big red warning light that
okay.
says we're out of congruency with what it
Wow.
is we really believe in, what we
Mm,
really want,
mm,
or what we really deserve or need. We have a belief around that. But
mm,
oftentimes in organizations, we believe to keep our job, we have to say yes to things that
yeah.
isn't
Yeah.
in congruency with the person that we are, right? To not lose our job. Back to Maslow's hierarchy. If I don't have a job, I can't feed my family.
Yeah.
I can't shelter my family. And
Mm,
so organizations is one of the first places, or in high school teams, other environments like that, but certainly organizations that rub us up against our own gremlins of what is our give and take for
mm,
ourselves, and how much of our soul or ourselves are we willing to sell
mm,
in order to survive.
mm,
In contrast to, can I bring my fullness, my full self to the conversation and to the work so that I can thrive?
mm. And it seems to me, Angela, the companies who are creating a positive work culture are the ones that create a conversational generosity within the company to where when the boss says, here's something I want you to do, it's more invitation than declaration. It's more collaboration than it is command. And so there's a space in which you can step up and say, okay, boss, I'm not exactly sure what you're wanting. Help me gain some clarity around this. Okay, get the clarity. And then what are the competencies that you see in me that you think would allow me to step up into that? Because it could be the boss just needed to get it off his or her desk, right, and get it done. Or it could be that you were specifically chosen for that task. So you get that kind of feed forward, to use your word, and say, okay, here's some confidence that the boss has in me to get it done.
Yeah,
That zooms productivity and engagement and all the kinds of things that make for growing people and profits at work.
absolutely. And what you so beautifully highlighted is that individual had to demonstrate integrity through the act of being vulnerable to say,
Mm,
okay, what is it, right? Like,
mm,
how come, to be willing to ask the question, and the environment has to be of integrity to
yeah.
allow or invite that into the space. And most of my work is generating and germinating those kinds of things, as I know your work is too, and
Yeah.
your other guests have been. Like we're
Hmm.
all in the same set of experiences that is really aiming for this generous integrity. Let's dance from a place to where we all are winners for as
Mm.
long as we want to win in this context. And
Mm.
when we don't, it's okay for people to move on. There's
Yeah,
nothing wrong with
exactly.
that, right? Our growth on this earth and on this planet is vastly different for each of us. And
Mm.
sometimes it is appropriate, as it was for me, to leave corporate world the moment that I chose to leave and try something else.
Yeah, exactly. And you've seen the success stories just like I have. The leaders who step up into creating that conversational generosity, that vulnerability, are the ones who really succeed, and their companies are the ones that grow people and profits, the 10x and above, right? It's just amazing. So perhaps leadership and non-conversational generosity is a challenge that we see out there to creating a positive work culture. What's another challenge that you see, Angela, in the work today?
Yeah, I don't know if you've heard the term, but my hunch is you have, of being a generative
Mm-hmm.
leader,
Mm-hmm.
creating a future that wouldn't have existed had we not spoken it into reality.
Mm-hmm.
And we sometimes will think about generative or generating something like we have a vision, but we can describe our vision. The question becomes, are we willing to take the actions and be in the conversations to actually move ourselves into a future state, one that is unknown, unfamiliar, and might feel a bit scary?
Mm-hmm.
And one of that is one of the elements that I find is missing in leaders and leadership at the executive, senior, mid, individual contributor level is our
Mm-hmm.
ability to imagine, to be creative, to have that willingness, and probably more important that the desire to
Mm-hmm.
step fully into the unknown in a generative way so that we can have a different set of experiences than the ones we've already known that we're trying to tweak. Yeah.
So the challenge is to step beyond the fear, or to step beyond the grasp of fear, or the major grasp of fear. I think there's always a little bit of fear as you're stepping outside your comfort zone, right? And that's where all real growth lies. So that challenge is for leadership to say, hey, it's okay. It's going to be a zigzag. And as my friend Dr. Bob Johansson talks about, not so much to say certainty, here's what's going to happen, but to provide that clarity. Here's the direction we're going in, and we're going to collaborate and work together to create that preferred future and to generate that together. But it is the mark of a really good, maybe even a great leader, to cast that vision that says, this way, here we go. Come on, guys. Angela Cusack is my guest on this episode of the Work Positive Podcast. Angela, ignitingsuccess.com is your website. What's Work Positive Nation going to find when they go there?
Oh, goodness. They were going to find some resources, some interesting articles. They'll find a way to connect with me. And I absolutely encourage, let's be in the conversation. If
Mm,
there's something that is provocative, that has stirred you up, that's the juice that I'm interested in. There's a lot of yes in this world.
mm,
And I am more interested in what didn't land. How might we create disruption in
mm.
order to create a better future than the one that we have individually? Let's create it
Wonderful.
together. Let's raise our level of collective intelligence. Let's practice being in our highest integrity. And let's look just below, just out of surface, where we can become better humans as a we, not just a me.
Mm.
And all of that, speaking engagement information, things to that nature, all live out there. I would invite you, all of you, to have fun exploring and discovering for yourself.
Amazing. Work Positive Nation, Angela always wants to know from my guest their one thing. So, Angela Cusack, what's your one thing that you would recommend to Work Positive Nation to start doing today to create a positive work culture?
Play your edge. So you mentioned people don't like to be out of their comfort zone. And I'm not inviting companies or teams or individuals to play outside of their companies or outside of their comfort zone. You had mentioned that I have often been termed or named an organization's secret weapon, and that is something that was gifted to me over multiple different companies, which makes me laugh. Because really, all I was doing with them, the secret behind that, is having them constantly practice playing at the edge.
Hmm.
So to improve the work environment, to make it positive, be vulnerable, challenge yourself to play at your edge. Fun, and I dare you to do it.
So let's go get on the edge of something here, Work Positive Nation. Go get on the edge of your work positive culture and see what you discover there. It is a lot of fun. And boy, is it thrilling to do that and enjoy that ride with other people along with you.
Yeah.
Angela Cusack, ignitingsuccess.com is the website. Discover the Matrix is the book. You'll find links to both of those in the show notes. Please take advantage of those. Angela, thank you so much for the gift of your wisdom and just the beauty of who you are with Work Positive Nation today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Work Positive Podcast. Please share this podcast with your friends who are HR and small business leaders so they can do one thing today to create a positive work culture that increases productivity and profits. I'd like to give you a free Work Positive course just for listening. It's called Something to Talk About, and it's transformed the work conversations of so many people all over the world. Get your free copy when you go to workpositive.today/something to talk about, and you can start transforming your conversations today. Remember, it pays to work positive.